Welcome to another episode of Random Spontaneous Integrated Readings. Your readers today are Justin,
Kristen.
Today we will be reading from our findings at the Half Price Books in Dallas, Texas, which was the size of a huge Walmart. We needed a map and a bottle of water to get through it.
It was so big. Up until that moment, Diana had easily imagined acrimony between the shoemakers and every one of their interactions. But her fantasy life sputtered here and she froze, a little stunned by this composed picture of the couple. "Thank you," Penelope very nearly whispered. She seemed to be waiting for a kiss, and Diana was at least relieved that she did not have to witness that.
I dropped into the office to ask if Mr. Jaggers had come in yet, and I found he had not, and I strolled out again. This time I made the tour of Little Britain and turned into Bartholomew Close, and now I became aware that other people were waiting about for Mr. Jaggers as well as I. There were two men of secret appearance lounging in Bartholomew Close, and thoughtfully fitting their feet into the cracks of the pavement as they walked together, one of whom said to the other when they first passed me that Jaggers would do it if it was to be done.
"I did. Well," his father said, "you should have been paying attention." Jack shrugged. "I was. Now, that got to me a little. I don't know why Boughton would have let him on like that. Cagey at checkers, maybe?"
The noses of the longboats pointed left toward a canal leading a clump of teak buildings on stilts above the water, their roofs steep-pitched with rusty corrugated tin. "We are headed toward a small settlement, one of 200 along Enley Lake," Walter explained. "We won't be stopping here, but I wanted you to have a quick look-see at what you might find in this area. These hamlets tucked away in small channels."
Gogol's 14th birthday. Like most events in his life, it is another excuse for his parents to throw a party for their Bengali friends. His own friends from school were invited the previous day, a tame affair, with pizzas that his father picked up on his way home from work, a baseball game watched together on TV, some ping pong in the den. For the first time in his life, he has said no to the frosted cake, the box of Harlequin ice cream, the hot dogs and buns, the balloons and streamers taped to the walls.
And another day, I sink into the memory as if it were a warm bath. Another day, I came home to find that Lexi had painted the kitchen while I was at work. We had spoken once or twice about doing something to brighten the room, but months had passed, and we still hadn't gotten around to going to the paint store and picking out a color. That morning, I drunk my coffee in a room with the same dingy beige walls that had been there since before I moved in. But when I came home, I found my wife sitting in a room with walls the color of pale sunshine.
She shook her head and told him about Eva Bronson and George. He promised he'd talk to them as quickly as he could. As she left, she could feel his eyes lingering on her as she limped down the hall. It was noon when Gabby finished with her last patient of the morning. Clutching her purse, she hobbled toward her car, knowing she didn't have much time.
Gus was sitting there not making a sound, but his face was red and getting redder, and his eyes were round and terrified. When Gus was small, he used to cry so hard he'd faint. The girls had been taught to say, "Breathe, Gus, breathe," as his face darkened into purple. Eventually, he'd pass out and keel over.
Just then, a young man, blond and polished, stepped between them. "Hi, I'm Reggie Lewis. My girl said you were waiting to see me. Is it Mose?" "No, it's Moses Whitecott." "Oh, okay. You want to come back to my office?" Reggie walked off, leading the way.
Julie, too, would rather drive than fly now. She covered much the same route just yesterday, but in the dark, and she wonders what she missed. The trip should take us about 8 hours, she estimates, and will be like old times in Dad's Chevy, except we'll eat.
pair of navy boot clumps. They looked to me like shoes a stewardess would wear, and were a size too small, but I squeezed into them. My feet began to hurt even before we left the apartment.
Why? The sad loop music began again as the sky on the stage lightened, and there stood the poor lady against a moon as bright as the sun. Her hair was now so long it swept the floor, wiping up her tears. An eternity had passed since she last saw her husband, for this was her fate, to stay lost on the moon, forever seeking her own selfish wishes.
I mean, it's not like I've given her any reason to love me this much.
No, I agree. You haven't. My boss came around the corner and I hung up. As I filled out my day's FedEx labels, I thought, if only we needed reasons.